I couldn't let Alfred Hitchcock's birthday pass without creating an episode of A Million Movies focused on the director who was my first real introduction to classic movies. I saw To Catch a Thief, Dial M for Murder, Strangers on a Train, and The 39 Steps all before I was out of junior high school. By the time I'd finished college, I'd added Shadow of a Doubt, The Trouble with Harry, North by Northwest, The Wrong Man, and about a dozen others to that list. So for this week's episode, I'm going to start and end the connections with my favorite Hitchcock film of them all, Rear Window. Here's a tease of what's to come. Rear Window hits a ton of right notes for me, starting with the amazing set it was shot on, built on Stage 18 at Paramount Studios. Add in the point-of-view cinematography, the slow-building suspense, and the incredible performances by Jimmy Stewart, Grace Kelly, Raymond Burr, and Thelma Ritter, and of course the ubiquitous cameo by the director himself, and you have everything you need for a classic Hitchcock film. For me, one of the more interesting aspects of Rear Window is its use of sound, specifically that other than a very short piece of music at the end of the film, all the sounds that the audience hears are coming from the same space that the characters are in. This technique is called Diegetic Sound, and it basically means that what the audience hears is also what the characters in the film hear. There's no external narration or even mood music added in to help amp up specific scenes. Now that's not to say sounds and music aren't present in the film, they absolutely are, but the sounds and music come from within the setting itself. There's a great example of this in the opening sequence of the film. As the camera pans across all the apartments in the courtyard, we hear a light jazz theme playing. In most movies, the theme would simply fade out, but in a diegetic film like Rear Window, we see that the music was actually coming from a neighbor's apartment.
Are you over 40? When you wake up in the morning, do you feel tired and run down? Do you have that listless feeling?
Hitchcock used diegetic sound in many of his films as a way to bring the audience into the story or the scene. Without an artificial score underneath, there's nothing external to the action on the screen to distance the audience from the story. It makes it easier for the audience members to imagine themselves in the same position as the protagonist in the story. Now, when Mel Brooks was making High Anxiety, his spoof of Hitchcock films, he referenced Hitchcock's use of diegetic sound in a creative and funny way when Brophy, Dr. Thorndyke's driver, makes a dramatic accusation.
I think Dr. Ashley was a victim of foul play.
Like other Brooks films, High Anxiety is loaded with gags. One of the most well-remembered is a recurring gag where Brophy struggles to lift objects.
I got it! I got it! I got it! I ain't got it! I'll get it.
This same gag found its way into the adventure comedy The Goonies, when Chunk accidentally bumps into a water cooler.
Okay, Mel. That's all I can stand, and I can't stand no more! I got it! I got it! I got it! I don't got it. You klutz!
Shortly after the scene, Chunk is captured by the Fratellis and is locked in a room with the Fratellis' deformed brother, whom they call Sloth. The Fratellis have Sloth chained to a chair where he spends his time watching television. In addition to cooking shows, Sloth also enjoys watching classic movies, and in one scene we can see him watching Captain Blood starring Errol Flynn. When Captain Blood was released in 1935, it helped make stars out of its two lead performers, Errol Flynn and Olivia de Havilland, and it was part of a breakout year of movies for Basil Rathbone as well, playing the French buccaneer Levasseur. Now, while Flynn and de Havilland would end up making 8 films together between 1935 and 1941, they only appeared with Basil Rathbone one other time, in the 1938 version of The Adventures of Robin Hood. Michael Curtiz, who directed both Captain Blood and The Adventures of Robin Hood, wanted to take the swordplay that they had done in Captain Blood to an exciting new level in Robin Hood. Those action sequences, along with the performances of the cast and the brilliant color photography, helped make Robin Hood a classic that many consider to be the best Errol Flynn movie ever made. The Robin Hood costume itself is iconic, and one of my favorite homages to Flynn's Robin Hood came in 2009 when Jean Dujardin reprised his role of French spy OSS-117 in OSS-117 Lost in Rio. When Dujardin and his partner, an Israeli colonel played by Louise Monod, learned that their target is hosting a costume party, OSS-117 pulls together this look. One of the key plot points of OSS-117 Lost in Rio is that Dujardin's character suffers from vertigo stemming from an accident when he was part of a circus trapeze act and missed the catch that killed his partner. Some of the footage in the scene, including the crowd reactions, was originally used in 1952's The Greatest Show on Earth. One thing to look out for when watching The Greatest Show on Earth are a couple of cameo appearances by well-known stars. For example, during Dorothy Lamour's performance of Lovely Luana Lady, both Bing Crosby and Bob Hope are shown in a tracking shot of the crowd. Of course, Hope and Crosby starred with Lamour in Road to Singapore, Road to Morocco, and several other road pictures. Another cameo to keep an eye out for is William Boyd as Hopalong Cassidy during the parade sequence. Boyd appeared in the film as a favor to director Cecil B. DeMille, as a thank you for DeMille casting him in The King of Kings in 1927, a film that helped get Boyd's career started. And while William Boyd would go on to film a successful TV series as Hopalong Cassidy on NBC, The Greatest Show on Earth marked his final appearance in a movie. In total, though, Boyd made 66 movies playing Hopalong Cassidy. Many of those films and several of the TV episodes were shot in Sonora, California. Sonora has been a popular filming location since the 1920s, particularly for westerns. In addition to the Hoppy films, one of the most popular films shot there was Back to the Future Part 3. In this final installment of the Back to the Future series, Marty, using the name Clint Eastwood, finds himself in a shootout with Buford Tannen. When Marty refuses to duel, Buford shoots Marty. But Marty survives the shot thanks to a metal plate he wears under his poncho, a precaution Clint Eastwood himself used in A Fistful of Dollars. Though set in the Old West, A Fistful of Dollars was actually inspired by a 1929 detective novel by Dashiell Hammett called Red Harvest. And A Fistful of Dollars wasn't the only film to be inspired by that novel. Roadhouse Nights in 1930, Kurosawa's Yojimbo in 1961, and Last Man Standing in 1996 all borrowed elements from the story. Another film inspired by Red Harvest was the Coen brothers' 1990 crime drama Miller's Crossing. And in one key scene in Miller's Crossing, Tom, played by Gabriel Byrne, goes to visit Clarence Johnson to find out who he's placing bets for. On the wall in Clarence's room is a boxing poster from Clarence's days as a fighter. Clarence's opponent was Lars Thorvald, the Norseman of the Apocalypse. And if that name sounds familiar to you, it's because Lars Thorwald is the character played by Raymond Burr, the wife-murdering neighbor in the apartment across from Jimmy Stewart in Rear Window. So let's review the connections we've covered today. We started with Hitchcock's Rear Window, which is a case study in the use of diegetic sound in movies, which Mel Brooks paid tribute to in his spoof of Hitchcock films High Anxiety, which had a running gag that was repeated in The Goonies, which featured a character watching a scene from Captain Blood on television. The main cast members of Captain Blood were reunited in The Adventures of Robin Hood, a character Jean Dujardin dressed up as in OSS-117 Lost in Rio, which features clips taken from The Greatest Show on Earth, which had a cameo appearance by William Boyd as Hopalong Cassidy, who shot several of his westerns, including his television series, in the same area where they shot Back to the Future Part 3, which borrowed a major plot point from A Fistful of Dollars, which was inspired by the same novel that inspired Miller's Crossing, where you can see a boxing poster promoting Lars Thorvald, who is the main villain in Rear Window. And we've come full circle. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and as always, if you have a favorite movie star, a specific film, or even a type of movie you think would make a good episode, please be sure to let me know in the comments below. And until next time, thank you again for watching A Million Movies.